In the next 20 years, population will increase to an estimate of 8.2 billion. GDP of the developing countries such as China and India will continue to grow at a faster rate than that of the developed nations, while energy consumption will continue to rise. All these factors will put a strain on diminishing natural resources. Global trade will play an increasingly important role as these trends take place. Specifically, in maritime transportation, which represents 80% of world trade volume. Two scenarios would play out during this time frame: protectionist and transformative. Under the protectionist scenario, the world will be driven by individual countries' self-interest, resulting in barriers to trade. Under transformative scenario, countries will open their economies. Global interests will take a center stage over local interests. In such environment, information sharing will drive rapid technological innovation.
Currently, 8% of the total global trade volume is made by sea transportation, out of which 95% of energy fueling is made with oil. Effect of oil prices on container freight rates increase in periods of sharply rising and more volatile oil prices. Elasticity between oil price and containers freight implies that a 10% increase in oil price could cause an increase of 2 to 3.5% in freight rates. Shipping costs are responsible for 33% of all transportation costs. Therefore, increasing oil supply constraints may lead to rising oil price and consequently higher maritime transport costs.
In both the protectionist and transformative scenarios, we will see that as the population grows by 1.2 billion in 2030, there will be a greater demand for resources and goods. Global trade, more than ever, will be critical in linking international demand and supply, and the shipping industry will have to increase capacity and efficiency. The economies of countries have been converging. The GDP per capita and the standard of living are on the rise, hence, more people demand a wider range of products. As a result, more resources are needed to meet these changes, especially in countries with high GDP growth such as China and India. Technological progress will continue to play a key role in the next 20 years. Global trade will benefit from cheaper and more efficient transportation due to advances in ship technologies, port logistics, and to a certain extent, alternative energy sources. Climate change will remain a concern as fossil fuels will continue to be the primary energy source. More attention will be given to environmentally friendly and socially responsible solutions.
Under a protectionist scenario, in order to protect themselves from fluctuation and uncertainties, countries around the world will favor domestic production of goods and services. This would push up tariffs and quotas on imports and raise anti-immigration policies. This decrease in the transfer of people, goods and technology will lead to lower global trade and less international cooperation between both countries and companies. Nations will attempt to reduce shipping costs by transferring these costs to their trade partners, potentially creating tensions. Oil producing countries, and particularly Saudi Arabia, are therefore likely to push the oil price up, increasing volatility and therefore transportation costs. At the same time, the population increase over the next 20 years will raise overall consumer demand, and countries will have to find more efficient ways to transport the products they need. Similarly to what we have seen so far, the focus will be on increasing the size, speed, and efficiency of ships and ports, and less effort will be dedicated to finding environmentally friendly and socially responsible solutions, such as innovative game-changing technologies. The ultimate goal will be to reduce oil consumption through the refinement of existing technologies. Freighters will be redesigned with increased efficiency. For instance, special silicone-paint coatings in the hull of ships will be used to reduce the friction with water. Furthermore, sky sails, which are additional wind guides, will assume up to 20% of the power needed by freighters. Alternative and shorter, but more difficult routes will be explored, such as the northern route from Northeast Asia to Europe, requiring new technologies and equipment for the freighters. The size of the ships will increase, enabling the transportation of more product for any given trip. More freighters, such as the MRS, with 33% more capacity than a regular freighter will appear. Ports will become bigger and more efficient with higher internal logistics in order to reduce the unloading and loading time, hence lowering the high docking costs. Nations will continue exploring alternatives to oil transportation, but at a slower pace and with less cooperation. Therefore, carbon emissions are likely to continue, if not increase, in the next 20 years.
A transformative scenario will have impacts on trade policy, demographics, environmental improvements, and economic growth. In an environment of financial system reform, governments reduce tariffs and subsidies to encourage open trade. More trade agreements can lead to improved international relations and knowledge sharing. In a transformative scenario, oil prices will be lower and less volatile over the next 20 years. Consequently, freight costs will decrease, global trade will increase, products will be cheaper, inflation will be lower in many countries. Interest rates will also decrease, and this will lead to higher global growth. From an environmental angle, corporations will increase their commitments to social responsibility. Similarly, governments will provide incentives for corporations to use non-polluting technologies. In this scenario, existing technologies will be adapted and refined. However, this transformative environment will be conducive to the innovation of game-changing technologies as well. Firstly, there is nuclear. Nuclear propulsion is broadly used in military ships and submarines for over 50 years. These nuclear reactors can produce significant power from small quantities of highly enriched uranium. The US Navy has used over 500 maritime reactor cores over 50 years without a single incident. Regarding the adoption of nuclear power to civilian ships, the British company Lloyd's has commenced a study in 2010 with other shipping companies to investigate the practical maritime applications of small modular reactors. Lloyd's expects to see nuclear ships on specific trade routes sooner than many people currently anticipate. Studies show prototypes being used within 10 years and commercial deployment within 15. Additive manufacturing, more commonly known as 3D printing, is a legitimate way of producing and manufacturing mechanical parts. This is expected to have a very significant impact on shipping. Container ships have to carry a huge amount of spare parts, taking up valuable cargo space. Ships are producing revenue when they're sailing between ports. If they're held up in port waiting for spare parts, revenues are lost. Alternative fuels will be further adopted over time. Biofuels, liquid natural gas are the most likely to be adopted because their engine systems are easily adapted to existing ship designs and they help meet the near-term objectives of producing less CO2. Other technologies have been researched, designed, and are near adoption. These include regular sails on ships, solar sails on ships, fuel cells for power storage, and multiple hull pentamarans designed for faster shipping at yet cheaper than air freight prices. Ship and port automation. Container ships have an average crew size of 15 to 23 men. Larger container ships can now be operated by even smaller crews. The Maersk Enemer, the largest container ship in the world, has a capacity of 250% larger than the average container ship with a crew of only 13. Also, more ports will be upgraded with automated infrastructure allowing ships to turn around faster. Consequently, the ship's utilization will increase and revenues for the shipping company will too.